Well, Broncos country, man. Away from the studio today again. It's been a crazy couple days with the holidays. But let's talk about it now that a little bit of time has passed since the Broncos' absolute heartbreaking loss against the Los Angeles Chargers. What went wrong, and what's next for this team? What are some areas that are deeply concerning that could prevent us from, not just being a playoff team, but prevent us from being successful in the next couple weeks? We'll talk about how we feel about it, and we'll kind of give a full-on recap. If it's your first time on the channel, guys, I appreciate it. I'm not in my normal studio environment today, so forgive me for that. But I'd appreciate it if you can consider hitting that subscribe button if you love Denver sports, focusing primarily on the Broncos. But we dabble with some Nuggets, we dabble with some Avs as well. So thanks in advance. Tell a friend, have a friend, tell a friend. Let's get this community built out, baby. All right, so we're kind of in mourning. I know this past game has bothered me more than a game in recent memory, and for a lot of obvious reasons. And I look at it like it's a really big positive because the Broncos are finally relevant. They're finally putting themselves in a position to where games this late in the season mean a lot. And I really forgot about that feeling. I almost envied it because it just bugs me, man. It eats away at you. And I think what kills me the most about this game against the Chargers overall is the fact that everything that we talked about keys to the game and what the Broncos needed to do, they did it to perfection in the first half, at least. We can even with the huge, end of half mishap, which has been a really bad problem for this team. But even with the end of half mishaps, it was perfect. You know, Three touchdowns on our first three drives. We were running the ball unbelievably efficiently. We didn't turn the ball over at all. In fact, we forced a turnover in the first half as well. We got ourselves a lead, and I felt like this is the perfect position to be able to have this team because Chargers were not really built to be able to come from behind. Well, I didn't think that they were. But then the second half happened, and we were a really good second half team. And the problem is I don't know where the incompetence came from with this team, with the coaching staff specifically. And I want to put this all mainly on Sean Payton because he is the head coach. But when you have a 21-10 lead, the Broncos ended up running the ball 7 times and throwing it 21. And we were averaging 5.2 yards a carry. Makes no sense to me. This is exactly what I was talking about is going to come back and bite this team in the ass. And unfortunately, in this particular situation, I was right. When you want to close teams out, you need to find a way to control the game. And controlling the game means controlling the clock. And the way that you do that, unless you're unbelievably efficient and you complete basically every pass, you cannot do that unless you're on the football. And it came back to bite us because what it allowed for us to do, allowed for what it caused really is several three and outs or possessions that the Broncos would have that were just empty possessions that really didn't take a lot of time off of the clock, and it continued to give confidence to the Chargers when you had an opportunity to really put the game away. And that's really where the big frustration is. I get it. I get a lot of the hatred and the anger towards the defense, and I think that it was a poor performance. But we talked about it. It's a very difficult team to game plan against because they don't really have an identity on offense rather than they're just going to not screw up and they're going to take whatever the defense is giving them. And we gave them way too much. Our linebackers are way too vulnerable. Our linebackers are a very big problem. And I think that Riley Moss coming back will actually alleviate a lot of the linebacker issues because before, when Riley was playing, we'd be able to bring in an extra DB and we'd have a lot of defensive sets that we would run with really one linebacker on the field. But these last few weeks, we've kind of forced to have to play Sternad and Barton, and teams have been going after that as much as they possibly could, and you can bank on that continuing to happen. But what went wrong for that team? I mean, there was a lot of things that piled on, but the big things are the same stuff that we've been talking about that have been issues with this ball club. Uh, whether it's not being able to run the ball or a lack of commitment, right? They came out, they committed to the run, they really set the tone for the game. It was so beautiful to watch. And then for some reason, they deviate from that. And another one is end of half and end of game scenarios that they do a terrible job of. Sean Payton really needs to find a way to clean that up. I don't know if, him being the play caller is allowing for him to mismanage the game. Obviously, he's been a play caller for his long career as a coach. And there's also been a lot of those issues with him in a career as a coach. So this is something that he needs to be able to get better at. because the end of half scenario where Chris Abrams drain, I mean, you talk about it, a amazing play, baiting the quarterback to throwing it, getting the pick, end of half to be able to have this team go up 2 possessions is huge. And then the first play there's like 40 seconds left in the half. First play, the Broncos run a screen. I absolutely 100% love that call because the result of the screenplay will allow for you to dictate how you're going to play the rest of the half, right? Are you going to be more aggressive and try to get points? And if the screen doesn't go well, you just take a knee, run the ball a couple times, you move forward. Well, the screen went for like 3 yards, so nothing really came from that. At that point, you hand the ball off, you move on. Well, they didn't. They decided to call a pass play that ultimately I don't think was even. This is the most annoying part. Like I get Javonte Williams. It was kind of it ended up being a safe pass. Javonte Williams kind of ended up stumbling backwards and he fell, so it caused for it to be incompletion. But the purpose of that play was not to dump it off short to Javonte. The purpose was to take a shot, which is a terrible decision. But Bo ends up making the right decision and playing it safe. In hindsight, he obviously should have taken off running, but he played it safe, dumped it down, it goes incomplete. Now it's a different ballgame. So now the Broncos decide to run. When they decide to run, Jim Harbaugh's looking at it like, hey, they're going to have to punt the ball. We'll see what the hell happens. He takes the timeout. And, a bad penalty, it ends up costing you 3 points. It's terrible. It's terrible. And it really did flip the momentum. Now, when we came out of half, we got the ball, we went down, we kind of even the score in a sense of like we kicked our field goal as well. So you can make the argument that kind of leveled that out and evened it out. But on the flip side, you can look at it saying, okay, now it allowed for the Broncos, instead of being up 11, it could have been up 14. You can see how late games that could have changed the flow of the game, because even though it's still 2 possessions, it's 2 touchdowns rather than a field goal and 2-point conversions and all that kind of stuff. It's just wild stuff. And then you take it again to the end of toward like into the fourth quarter, right? We get a situation where we can, kind of go for it on fourth down. We decide to end up punting and pinning them back, and then that ends up biting us in the ass. And I think in a clear situation where you should have gone for it, you need to make the decision of like, are you an aggressive ball club or are you not an aggressive ball club? What's your game plan? If you're aggressive, you play aggressive the whole game. You decided to play aggressive at the end of the first half. Why are you all of a sudden now trying to be conservative when you're trailing in the game? And your defense hasn't been performing well. It's not like it's been a dominant performance by them. So it was just really confusing. And the defense ends up giving a 90-play drive, and obviously that ended up being the game. There was too many possessions in the second half too that were 3 and outs or took such a minimal amount of time from off the clock. It was truly frustrating to see in a lot of different ways, and the lack of second half adjustments. So, so many things, it seems like with this team, so many things that we do well, we're inconsistent at doing it. And then a lot of the things that we do bad, when we finally do those things well, we do the other things that we were doing pretty decent in for most of the season, we do it poorly. We just can't seem to put it all together. And that's a learning curve. That's a learning experience overall. I mean, we get that. There's going to be a lot of that with the team. And so moving forward, what does it mean for this team? Well, I think that experiencing that game was unbelievably important for a young team. It was a playoff environment, a playoff style of game in every sense of the word. A lot of things happened, a lot of situations that this team was put in that they haven't been put in all year. So there's a lot of really great things that they can work, they'll be able to work at it and improve and get better at moving forward. But I think it also highlighted a lot of the flaws that this team still has, right? And we've always talked about it. It's not like we're sitting there thinking that this team is legit and they're so good. They've just been a pleasant surprise, and there's been a lot of really great young players that have developed into being true talents. But there's obviously still a lot of holes on this team, and you can't expect that was ever going to not be the case, given the history and the years of us not doing well. I think the big takeaway here is Broncos country is that we've just got to continue believing in this team. You got to continue to say, this is a young team that's grown from different situations, that's responded to adversity really, really well. You have to hope that they continue to do that, that they continue to improve. And I, I'm at the point now as a Bronco fan where I just want this team to get playoff experience, even if it results in a one and done playoff run. I just think it's so important because you've already. I feel like with what's going on so far this year, you're already a year ahead of schedule in terms of the rebuild. Getting into the playoffs and getting that experience, I think, puts you an additional year ahead of that. Because then it was like, let's say they ended up finishing with 9 wins this year. You look at it, you're feeling optimistic. You got your quarterback. Next year, your expectation is playoffs. And then you get the playoff experience. And in the third year, the expectation is to make a run. It kind of, you know, speeds that process up a little bit if you can get the taste of the playoffs and really allow for these guys to get some of the playoff experience, especially your young quarterback, Bo Nix, to get a good understanding of what that environment is like and how that all plays out. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of games this Sunday that could, mean a lot of things for the Broncos. But at the end of the day, you wanna you wanna take your franchise and your organization to the next level. You've got to say we're in control of our destiny. We go out and we get it. We don't want to backdoor or rely on anybody else uh, to help us get in. Huge game coming up against the Bengals. I hate the matchup for a lot of different ways. But then again, a lot of games where I've liked the matchup, it's worked out poorly. A lot of games where I've hated the matchup, it's worked out really great for us. So we'll see how this team responds. We've got, a week before the next game happens that, it is next Saturday. So we'll see how it goes. I want to know how you guys are feeling, Broncos country. We're going to have a ton of content, a ton of things that I'm working on in terms of planning out for this week. So stay tuned for that. But until next time, Merry Christmas. Spend time with those you love the most. And go Broncos, baby. Peace out.